the end conclusion is that women who are exposed to these medications are 20% more likely to have a baby with a significant birth defect.
That sounds really high.
Which sounds,
1 in 5 sounds very high. Welcome back to the Chemist Confessions podcast. I'm Gloria.
I'm Victoria.
And this is a human conversations on all the skincare science we talk about.
Yeah.
This is going to be a very interesting episode.
We should update as to probably just go ahead and explain. Today's topic is about pregnancy and skincare. And I guess, yes, why are we talking about this? Is because I am recently pregnant and the podcast people are going to be the first people finding this out. Holy crap.
You know what's so funny is a couple episodes ago when we relaunched the season, we got an email that's like, oh, you know, I'm so glad the podcast is back. By the way, y'all haven't been drinking.
Yes. So to those people who have been asking where the cocktails went, y'all already knew.
Yep.
Y'all are good.
Yeah, I am just not drinking in solidarity. Yeah, I'm not pregnant.
She's been very supportive.
But drinking solo is also kind of sad.
It's not fun. And also drinking mocktails while Gloria drinks the real stuff is also not that fun. But yeah, so that's what spurs on this topic. It's going to be a little different this time. You might feel like it's a little bit of both the claims and a little bit of meat. And that's because it's a can of worms. But we're going to get into it because we've been asked this so many times.
I feel like we've been dancing away from it for so long.
We're always like, consult your doctor.
Yeah, just hands.
Yeah.
And you'll see why very soon.
Yeah. So, okay. But before we get into that, we should do a brand update. We should talk about the sunscreen challenge we're going to soon wrap.
Yeah, you guys will have seen a bunch of reels in the past month on us using a UV camera to test all sorts of sunscreen. And honestly, it's been really fun for us too. It was one of those like, oh, well, we get asked a lot about sunscreen reviews, and sometimes it's kind of hard to give a very fair assessment or recommendation without putting
really
them
hard.
like head to head and like doing like a run like this. And it was great.
Yeah, I think the rating part was really interesting. I think because this is our first trial, it's kind of evolved as we tested them out.
For sure.
So, yeah, and because we tested 30, we're definitely going to dedicate the next episode to reviewing all of our trials and kind of going through some of the things we learned, because even though we test a lot of sunscreens, I think this is the first time we've done like true head-to-head.
Yeah, and it's really tough. And to Victoria's point, I definitely felt like my rating system as the test went on got a lot more strict. And also there's some products I test in the very beginning that I end up thinking about. I was like, you know what? That deserves an extra star because it didn't have these attributes that these other sunscreens did.
Yes, totally. And it got confusing for me because I was thinking, well, Asian sunscreen versus US sunscreen versus water resistance, do they get graded on the same level? I don't really know. So.
I think that for me was the toughest one. It's like there's a couple that I tested that I was like, this is really good for certain reasons, but I felt like the claims kind of overstepped that a little bit. Yeah,
totally. So look forward to that in our next episode. All right, next. We also have been traveling. So yes, chemists have fun too. We're not always in the lab.
You say it in such an unconvincing way.
You don't believe us?
We're really fun at parties. Come on, man.
You're right. I had zero gusto behind it.
We can be fun and social.
But yeah, so while we were at NYSCC, we got to hang out with a few of our, I want to say just like social media friends, or how do you put it?
One of my favorite things about this Chemist Confession journey is meeting other like-minded people in this field. You know, either people that started content way before us or people who are also new to the field but like-minded and wanting to spread, you know, just sound science, more ingredient focus, and just highlights on chemists all around.
I also think it's always, the feeling is always when you meet the person in real life, I think both parties are like, wow, a real human being.
You're real.
Yeah.
You're not AI generated bot.
You're not just an IG DM message. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. We got to, I guess, shout out to Lisa from The Experiment and Javon. We got to do a panel with them, so that was really cool. And that was hosted by Jen at the Eco Well.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got to also have a fun little dinner with Leah Yu behind Crave Beauty. We got to finally meet Charlotte, who's behind Soko Glam, and Then I Met You. And then also Alex from The Educated Mess, who's also a like-minded chemist. So
also other Charlotte from Dew. So it was a really good crowd.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. I feel like because we never ran the IG to be influencers. We never, I think this is really the first time we've got to like hang out as like influencers together. And it's actually kind of fun. Like I feel like for us who like always feel like imposters who don't have personal Instagrams, or it's like, oh, we don't belong.
And I will say, one of the things I was very pleasantly surprised by is I felt like everyone was very much them, right? Like who you see on these accounts are just who they are in real life.
Yeah.
Hope they feel the same way about us. Hope
they're like, nah.
They're probably like, yo,
weird.
Gloria on a Chemist Confession is whack.
Yeah, so, but anyway, so that's what we've been up to. And then aside from that, we are running a promo for Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, we wanted to kick off summer skincare with maybe two very important but sometimes forgotten pieces. I think everyone's always on market for their lightweight moisturizer or refreshing mist, and of course sunscreen. But one of the biggest staples, most important staples to your summer skincare is actually a solid cleanser. And still don't forget to exfoliate during this time. So the promo we're running is for every purchase of a full-size acid, you get Blank Slate for half off. Woo! So get this bundle. There's still time. We were running this campaign throughout the long weekend, but we realized that for podcast listeners, you might not catch wind of this until today, which is the Tuesday after. So we're extending the sale for the day. So please check it out on the website and use this promo code SummerDuo.
Yeah, and then on top of that, we finally have a new promo code for podcast listeners as well. So no longer will you be using CC Podcast 2023. We wanted to give $5 off your order, and please use a promo code ChemistCoin.
Because, NFTs and or metaverse and or Bitcoin.
We're so on trend.
It's not an actual coin, it's just a coupon code. But we're getting there.
Yeah, so please use promo code ChemistCoin for $5 off your order. All right, time to get into the news because I think it's kind of fun. The first one, this is really for me to share with Gloria because I will explain through a little bit of context on how Gloria and I met. When we used to work at L'Oreal, Gloria and I actually worked on similar projects, and the projects were in the customization or skincare customization space.
I think OG fans of Chemist Confessions will have heard this rant a few times of us going like, don't personalize it.
And it's because we both, let's just say it wasn't very fun. It wasn't very fun formulation and just lots of issues all around. But I want to share with Gloria that the Ketchup King, Kraft Heinz, just revealed its latest saucestrosity. That's an actual
words, not yours.
It's in the article. Yep.
Oh.
A customizable dip dispenser with more than 200 possible combos like jalapeno ranch or mango ketchup. So, yep, I just wanted her to know that personalization is spreading into the sauces.
You know what? I kind of love this. Victoria has seen me. I am weirdly brave when it comes to food. I can be picky. Like, there's very few things in the world that I love, but I will try anything once.
Can confirm.
Just about anything.
Yeah.
Victoria has witnessed me. So we go back to Taiwan. My family's from Taiwan. I go there a lot. And if you have never been, Taiwanese people are known for coming up with really weird combos just to do it, just to innovate.
Creativity, always innovating. Honestly, you can't fault them for that.
In nari sushi, why not put cashews in it? Because you can. Does it taste good?
salmon sashimi. Why not roll it in a little bit of Caesar and dill and eat it?
See
like
where
that.
it goes. She has seen me pick up many of those things. I was just like, oh, I wonder what it tastes like. The success rate is sitting right around 30%.
I would say, yeah, that's a good.
And I can imagine these 200 possible combos. I would probably guess the success rate is about the same, about 30%.
Yeah, so there's another chemist there that we love to bond with and say, we know what you have been through. So yeah.
I'm also really curious how they trial it. Like, I'm sure like they're just like, they want it to sound really like dramatized. I'm sure there's like some marketer that's like, I need at least 100 combos. And then the R&D people are like, okay, like it doesn't gotta taste good, right?
Just throw the whole library at it.
Yeah, and the whole marketing meeting just a pile of fries. Yeah,
not the worst.
Yeah,
honestly, not the worst.
Yeah,
yeah. Okay, so anyways, that's the first piece of news. The second one I thought was interesting because it feels like a more beauty adjacent piece of news, and this is from basically the French Parliament's lower chamber recently passed a bill that aims to ban influencers from promoting cosmetic surgery on social media while making it mandatory for them to label the images when filtered or photoshopped.
Oh, I think that's so good.
Yes.
Oh my God, that's so necessary.
Yes.
Yeah. I actually think so. Obviously, with our algorithm, we don't get fed that stuff a lot, but it is really out of hand and really sad in a way.
Yes. So we all know social media is like this dual-edged sword. It definitely gets carried away, especially it definitely hits at your, I guess confidence level, your insecurities. So I really like this as well. I wanted to share it.
Yeah. I feel like the US is always kind of lagging behind when it comes to that kind of regulation.
Totally. What was the other thing that we learned about where certain derms in regions cannot actually promote skincare?
Oh, yeah.
I forget where, but there's different regulations for certain countries and especially with advertising.
I remember that. I think it was it was somewhere European. I forgot if it's the EU or the UK, but we kind of heard that they're not allowed to promote certain products. Like it's almost like kind of like your pharmaceutical sales rep culture. That's like very much kind of a no-no there. Yeah. That can kind of go into the derm recommendations you see on social media a lot too, but actually in other countries that's like kind of taboo.
Yes. So, yes. Yeah. So that's another area where I'm like, yeah, I hate to say it. Some doctors get too carried away here with some of their messaging and what they're pushing. So that would be something I would love to see too.
Yep.
One more thing. You guys probably always wonder why certain ads can get away with saying certain things. And I think Gore and I always like to tell you that it's because they're probably too small to be on the FDA and FTC's radar. So it always feels like there's this like lack of justice. But I did want to share that recently a brand has been flagged. This is in the UK. So what happened is that the UK's Advertising Standards Authority has ordered a natural deodorant brand called Wild to pull an ad that claimed that competing deodorants or antiperspirants cause skin irritation, worsened body odor, and were harmful to health.
Wow, today's news is just filled with feel-good moments, new law from the French Parliament, advertise agency, mango ketchup, sky's the limit.
Yeah, it's a good day. So, I thought this was great. They actually, the ad was flagged and had aired on the brand's website and YouTube. And it actually was the ad itself was targeting aluminum salts, saying that they're harming users, and so they had the ad pulled. And so I'm like, if you ever feel like there's it's just this lawless land that like nobody governs, I feel like this is kind of that little piece to know that there are people trying. It's just there's too much out there.
Yeah, for sure. It's like whack-a-mole, right? With these wild claims. At least there's like some movement.
Yeah. And hopefully that gives you peace of mind about aluminum deodorants. They're actually the only thing that that works. Yeah. So, all right. Then one last piece of news for Gloria Remember how last episode we talked about metaverse and NFTs?
Yeah.
Okay. Urban Decay is releasing 18 virtual makeup looks in Roblox.
Ow! What? Oh my god! What? Okay. Roblox is that very distinct moment in my life that I realize I am now not of the cool generation anymore. All my nieces and nephews are on Roblox and they love it. And they gave me a primer and they made me download it and they want me to create my avatars so I can play with them and stuff. I don't get it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, what do you do?
I really don't get it. So they made me make my avatar, and then they're like, okay, now you can go visit your friends. I'm like, well, I don't have friends. They're like, well, you can go make friends. I was like, okay. So I was like running around. You can chat with players.
Can kids meet other kids they've never met?
I don't know.
Okay.
So the thing is, like, once I signed up, they're like, oh, okay, we can add each other as friends. So then we're hanging out in the same metaverse. But then there are strangers there too. But I don't know who's there or how. Is it geofence? Is it randos?
Maybe.
I don't really understand. But like, and then they're like, oh, you can play games. And I remember there was a game. I didn't know what I was doing. It was just like a combination of like little games you can play. I think there was a game that was a little bit like Candy Crushing the mechanics.
Okay.
And then they're like, okay, now you can have a chicken. And I was like, well, why do I want a chicken? They're like, you just want a chicken. I don't get it. I don't understand. I might be butchering the game mechanics completely. This is literally like my niece walking me through it, and I was so confused.
Listening to this is like, you're ruining the game.
Yeah, you're like, this is like watching grandma explain like Facebook or something. I'll admit, I don't get it. Like my 1 hour primer with my niece, I was like, why?
Yeah. So, well, Urban Decay likes Roblox, and yeah, you can get they have 18 virtual makeup looks.
That's actually kind of cute. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. It just feels like, did L'Oreal wake up one day and was like, we must enter the metaverse NFT video game realm?
Now say it with a French accent.
Yeah.
The metaverse. I'm so sorry, French listener. I am so sorry.
Yeah, so I don't know. But anyways, it's still continuing, guys.
If it's successful, I think it's really smart because like my nieces and nephew, when they taught me, they were like 7.
Mm-hmm.
They're still playing Roblox. It's still popular with kids. So they must think like, oh, okay, like now like these preteens are starting to get to the age that they're interested in makeup. So Roblox, that's where they're spending all their time. Like, that's actually really smart.
Also, I was also thinking how a lot of kids probably aren't allowed to wear makeup until like a certain age.
That's a good
so
point.
It is kind of, video games are a good gateway into that, especially with the kind of animation software that you can do nowadays.
Actually, that's a really good point. That's always fun, and it's like ageless, because I used to play this fighting game called Soul Calibur.
Yeah.
And
yes, I did too.
Yeah. And in the 5th gen, you can build your own character. And I spent an absurd amount of time on like, okay, she's gotta have thunder thighs. But a really, really big eye.
I know we were talking about makeup, but you went for thunder.
Well, I want her to kick ass, so she's gotta have the thigh. But I spent an absurd amount of time customizing my character to never really play with her very much. It's the dressing up part that was really fun.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay, so, and then finally, we have a little bit of a celebrity brand launch update.
Oh, snap.
If you haven't heard already, it seems like Beyonce has teased a hair care line.
That is such a good fit.
Yes, yes. And it seems like there's not a lot of info on it, but it sounds like she's been inspired by the artist's experiences in her mother's salon. So we're not really sure what that is, but they're thinking it's going to be more prestige hair care. And Gloria and I can definitely tell you that prestige, or actually even just hair care alone, is exploding. It is the category right now. Makeup's back. I think it's like trying to get back on track, but I feel like hair care is the one with like the most new brands, new launches. And just a stat for you is that Just last year, they've noticed that prestige hair care sales have increased by 11%,
Wow.
while mass has grown by 7%. And this is just, this is just in the first quarter of this year.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's definitely the perfect time, and I don't know, I'm excited.
Do you think we'll dabble a little bit more in hair care products?
No. Too soon? Did I respond too quickly?
I know, I think it's very real because I get served a lot of ads on hair care because it's such a hot category right now. And I'm still like, whatever Costco has on sale, man. Like,
there was a YouTube comment that asked us about our hair routine.
I feel so ashamed.
I felt so bad because, like, I'm so sorry, but like we both use drugstore brands, and I really felt like her LOL was like an LOL of pity. It was like, like no, it was more like, oh, that's okay. Drugstore brands can be good. It was like kind of like that. It's okay.
Oh, you only use CeraVe? Well, that's pretty decent. Is it one of those?
Yeah. So, anyways, that's our hair expertise.
I have used Luxe hair products in the past before. Yeah. They have always been gifts.
Yeah. So, anyways, all right. So that's the end of the news.
Can you tell we are avoiding going into the core of the episode? Can't wait anymore. Let's decode that claim.
All right, let's do it. So today's claims focus is going to be about pregnancy and skincare.
It's a can of worms. We're just gonna come out and say it because we get a lot of questions like this all the time about our own products. Like, is your product pregnancy safe? Or about any product that you're using, saying, hey, is my routine okay for pregnancy? For a long time, and this still stands true, neither of us are doctors, so we just say, regardless of what we say, you should confirm with your care provider. Just double check. And now that Victoria's pregnant, we're like, okay, fine. We'll dig into this can of worms a little bit and hopefully help you guys understand why it's such a can of worms.
And I think Gloria can comment about how, like, she's seen me like pull my hair out because I have never felt like knowing so little going into a very significant life change.
It's almost shocking, like, how like bare the data is out there.
Yes, and even for someone who is, neck deep in the STEM, I just feel like it's been hard for me to understand where is it actually true, like a hard truth, or this is still just like general guidance that doesn't have, it's just general sentiment. So,
and to preview, it's a lot of gray area.
Yeah.
There's very little hard truth here.
Yeah. So I did want to paint a picture for you guys. You think that, pregnancy and skincare, or just pregnancy in general, is like a gray area. Well, the research world is exactly the same. So I took basically two pieces of, two lines from different journals so that you guys can have an idea of this spectrum. Because what you'll soon realize is that you can take a very conservative approach or a very liberal approach, and both are okay because you're the mom and you get to make that decision. So from the Canadian Family Physician Journal, they write that with the exception of hydroquinone, which has a relatively high systemic absorption rate, and tretinoin, for which the evidence is controversial, these products act locally and therefore produce minimal systemic levels. Consequently, in most cases, women can deal with these cosmetically unappealing skin conditions without compromising the safety of their unborn children. So,
cosmetically unappealing. Thanks, Canada.
Yeah, exactly. So we would say this is a very liberal approach to the world of skincare, and it's backed by a physician journal. So that should give you an idea of one end of the spectrum. In another journal, they actually are a lot more conservative, where they actually want to look at endocrine disruptors in pregnancy. There's a stat that I wanted to share that I thought was interesting, which is 55% of the women considered cosmetics use as a risk during pregnancy, and 65% would have appreciated advice about these products, which I feel like, that's exactly
I
true.
feel like the underlying message here is also no one, even physicians, want to comment on it.
Totally. Our findings indicate that all perinatal health professionals should be ready to advise women about the benefits and risks of using cosmetics during pregnancy. This is exactly what Gloria was saying. Yeah. And one of their kind of conclusions was, and the reason why they have a camp of taking a more conservative stance is because pregnant women are particularly vulnerable to the potential risks of the endocrine disruptors contained in cosmetics. First, cosmetics use is far more common among women than men. Second, pregnancy is a vulnerable time for the development of the embryo and fetus because of their immature metabolism. Now, you know us. We talk about endocrine disruptors in skincare all the time and how that it's not a worry. But there is a body of researchers that look at the cumulative effect of certain ingredients and that add up and how that might affect the pregnant woman because her hormones are just all over the place. And
and you should know that there's a lot of ongoing research, right? So this is an area where the jury is definitely still out. And like Victoria said, it's a cumulative effect of not just from your cosmetics, your day-to-day life, everything that you're exposed to. So during this time, the jury is still out, like, I feel like I would probably personally lean a little bit closer to the conservative side.
I think that's fine. Yeah, I agree. I think it's, and you'll start to see it more as we discuss, is that because so little has been tested on pregnant women,
shockingly little.
Yeah, you will, it's okay to basically want to be that careful.
Yeah.
And should you find yourself feeling like, you know what, I'm just not going to deal with any of it, my child comes first, that's okay. And if you're like, you know what, there's historically people have been using this product while they're pregnant for a long time, and I think
it turned out fine.
Yeah, still use my deodorant, you know, like that's also fine too. So hopefully that gives you an idea of the spectrum and how we all kind of fall somewhere in the middle-ish.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the state of the research.
Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
And with that, so knowing all of this and the context of the research, we have to share with you the claim, and the claim is actually from Biossance. If you were to Google pregnant safe skincare, you will see a sponsored post by Biossance where the title of it basically labels themselves as pregnancy safe skincare. And then it follows with 100% vegan and EWG verified. Wow. The kind of annoying thing about it is that if you click on pregnancy safe skincare, it takes you to the main page where you can purchase retinol. So there's like very little guidance on why they're pregnancy safe.
For those of you who are not aware, retinol is probably one of the first ingredients that gets flagged.
The whole vitamin A category.
Yeah, gets flagged for pregnancy. We'll get into a little bit more, but this is why this claim and why we find a lot of pregnancy safe skincare claims to be very problematic.
Totally. And there's no regulation. The FDA does not have a hand in what gets labeled as pregnancy safe. This is all based on the brand and I guess how confident they feel in their skincare being pregnancy, breastfeeding safe, and all those labels that they use, which is so irresponsible.
Yep. With that said, I guess we should kind of go into how these ingredients, or not even skincare, how drugs in general are categorized during pregnancy. Now, the way the FDA does the system, the labels have changed, but it's still a pretty relevant talking point because the change came pretty recently in 2015, and it's a gradual phase out. So you might still hear lingo like a category A, B, C versus D and X drugs when you're pregnant. And this is not just skincare ingredients. We're talking about everything from allergy meds to aspirin, a lot of even things you don't even think about, like your cold medicine. They have this rating that's in direct relation with pregnancy.
Yeah. And so how they break it down is, like Laura said, there is four categories. And we are just going to go through each category to give you an idea of how you can think about drugs, but also know that most skincare ingredients are not a drug and therefore have never been tested in that capacity to fall into any of these tiers. This is just to give you an idea of the landscape and claims and how to navigate those claims. So we'll start with the best category, and that's category A.
These are these are ingredients or drugs that have controlled studies in women fail to demonstrate a risk to the fetus in the first trimester, and there's no evidence of a risk in later trimester, and the possibility of fetal harm appears remote. So that means this has been tested on humans, and we are almost like 99.9% certain that at no staging of pregnancy can this drug negatively affect your fetus. Fun fact, there are no drugs in category A.
Because who's going to test on pregnant women?
And no one wants to do that. So we're talking about even vanilla things like Tylenol, aspirin. None of them, or even Pepsid, they're not category A. They're at best category B drugs.
Yep, so that's where we're starting.
So yeah, you might get to the definition. You're like, oh, okay, so during pregnancy, all I gotta do is only use category A drugs. Got it. Sorry, there are no category A drugs. And I do have to follow with a funny side story is because Victoria is the in-house pregnant lady, I let her do the first pass of the research, and then I was going through her notes and doing my own homework. So I Googled category A drugs, and then Google decided to tell me that category A drugs are heroin, methadone, cocaine, ecstasy, magic mushroom. I was like, if you're pregnant, I'm pretty sure these are not tested on pregnant women. So
the FDA is smoking crack.
Yeah, holy crap. Be specific on Google when you're looking for drugs. Anyway,
cool.
category
So
B.
Let's move on to category B then. So for category B, these drugs will usually have animal reproduction studies that have failed to demonstrate a risk to the fetus, and there are no adequate and well-controlled studies in pregnant women. So yes, animal testing. Yeah, I know, but you'd rather that or pregnant women.
So last year we dabbled a little bit in research of like animal-based reproduction safe studies. Didn't go through with it, just did the homework. It's really wild. So usually it's not just about feeding pregnant mice these drugs, you know, like there's a lot to be done, right? First of all, like what is the dosing level you're aiming for? And then how many generations are you following to see if their defects are passed down, like yada, yada, yada. Yeah. It can be very extensive, but then the takeaways can still be, we know 100% how these animal reproductive models translate to human reproductive models.
Yeah. So, and with knowing that, so I also want to say this is kind of, I can see why the FDA had to change this kind of category tiering, because you'll realize it's very lacking. A lot of this really only scratches the surface of what they can, you're basically just getting an initial snapshot. And usually a study like this would cause you to research further. So like using this as like a slap on a category B is not that informative, actually. It's kind of risky. But we will say that the good thing about what they've done here is that we do get a sense of certain ingredients in the acne realm. So for those of you that are curious, in category B, you will find that azelaic acid falls here. As a pregnant woman with acne, I cannot tell you how difficult acne has been for me. If you've noticed, my skin has been atrocious recently. Yes, it's the baby. She's doing this to me. So I've gone back to my teenage years. So anyway, so azelaic acid, actually 2 antibiotics, erythromycin and clindamycin. And then another one that I thought was strange was AHAs, because I saw it get listed as a category B in some journals, but I actually didn't find any like actual statements that these ingredients are actually category B. So that also got me a little worried.
Oh yeah, that's really interesting. And a lot of these things, like when we were doing research, it just feels like, again, on the drug side, it's much better reference, and a lot of it is like owned by these giant drug companies.
Mm-hmm.
So if Pepsid says Pepsid is category B or C, I forgot which one it's in, or like Tylenol is category B, there is a company very responsible for that statement and that categorization. That's where you know where to find the data.
Yeah.
With these skincare ingredients or these, it's just not very well documented.
No, it's not on the radar. I got more drugs to filter out than skincare or topicals. So I did want to give everyone like a little bit of context. So Tylenol, like Gloria said, is a category B. There's a lot of allergy medicines that are category B, and that's like the best you're going to get. Mm-hmm. So if that gives you an idea of where that stands in terms of azelaic acid in your skincare, we would say it's definitely okay. Mm-hmm. Advil is not a category B, so don't use Advil when you're pregnant. I learned that the hard way. So anyways, all right, so that's category B. Category C, we have to say, is a Wild Wild West.
Category C's definition is drugs that have not been shown to be harmful to fetuses. If they have been, they wouldn't be category C. Mm-hmm. However, there are some reasons to be more concerned about these drugs than category B drugs. If the pregnant patient will benefit from category C drug, it is generally used. Although most OBs would prefer a category B drug if it will give equivalently good results. That's a lot of dancing.
Do you feel like that description's like, I'm gonna backtrack.
It's okay. I mean, maybe not. Well, you should use it. I don't know.
3 asterisks. Like,
yeah, there's so many caveats. So generally speaking, when they say there are some reasons to be more concerned about, it could mean such a wide range of things. It could be from an animal model. Mm-hmm. They show that maybe it's bad for mice reproduction, mm-hmm. or they study on it's a lot of different animal tests that flag these ingredients, or show that it's an endocrine disruptor or interact with some sort of human hormone-like behaviors in one assay or another.
Yeah. So I think the best example of a category C topical is tretinoin, and I'll explain why. So we all know tretinoin, as soon as you think pregnancy, you're like, I gotta be off this. It's actually category C, but it is a can of worms itself because the data around it using topically is really lacking. There is, and I should give a shout out to Jackie from Natch Butte. She recommended me to read a book. This is by Emily Osters. The title is Expecting Better. This author, I felt like really like speaks to Gloria and I because she writes from a very objective position where she's like, here is the data, and collectively a lot of it's lacking, and then kind of in a way leaves it up to the reader to decide what that best decision would be. So this is taking it straight out of her book, where she mentions a 2015 meta-analysis that looks at first trimester exposure to medications, including tretinoin, and they didn't find significant impact on birth defects. However, there isn't any data that actually says there's no effect at all. This is just like trying to pull data points from different sources. Mm-hmm. And so in a sense, especially in this category, the end conclusion is that women who are exposed to these medications are 20% more likely to have a baby with a significant birth defect.
That sounds really high.
Which sounds, 1 in 5 sounds
very high.
Not great at all, but that's kind of their default assumption is because it's controversial, because there's no data, this is the kind of risk we're going to give it.
Almost
at a
more like
category
a
C.
Conservative approach, kind of like 1 in 5.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very strange, right? So there's no data to say that it could have an impact, but it's also because there hasn't been enough tested to know that. And I think that's the best way to explain this category in general. It's very confusing.
It's confusing. There's not a lot of firm takeaways. But at this risk level, I will say it does make most pregnant women will probably feel kind of like no one wants to hear your baby has a 1 in 5 chance of getting significant birth defect. It's almost saying well, I let you know the risk, and it sounds like it doesn't sound very unlikely at all.
Yeah, and I will tell you that I love my OBGYN who's been helping me through this whole pregnancy. When I told him that I was having major acne issues, he told me, oh, that's okay. Just find a good cleanser. So
have you thought about washing your face?
And when I heard that, I was like, oh yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. But I just feel like, I feel the pain of a doctor as well, because like, that's not really, it's just this whole nother realm of complexity that they're like, that's not even the issue, you know? And, I think a lot of them, sometimes they don't have the best, they can't always point you to the best solution as well. So, yeah.
I will say this is where you'll find, and this is where Victoria has been struggling a lot with her pregnancy breakouts, is a lot of common acne topicals are considered to be category C. So BPO, salicylic acid, which is a surprising one because it's so common and it's almost deemed as vanilla, but it's recently kind of been placed in category C. Hydroquinone, and like the quote Victoria read earlier, even though it's in category C, it's probably leaning towards the side of no, because it has such much higher absorption rate than other ingredients. And also oral zinc.
Yeah, and I wanted to add to the hydroquinone part is they deem it a category C because of the higher absorption rate, but it doesn't necessarily mean they've done the testing to know, is that higher absorption rate bad? So this should tell you that this is the state of category C. Not every drug has the same level of testing to say yay or nay. And the reasons aren't always consistent. For example, salicylic acid, what I could find that would deem it a category C is because like if you use it at extremely high levels, you can get a salicylate poisoning. And anyways, I think the challenge behind that is just that they're all, some of them like BPO can't really find a reason why it would be deemed a category C. But salicylic acid is like for a very specific circumstance, whereas hydroquinone is because it absorbs differently. So I think this whole realm, for me personally going through it, is like, yeah, I'll probably just stay away from that whole realm.
Just not dabble in it. Why risk it?
Exactly. Like, there's no testing. So,
yeah.
Anyway, so that's category C. And then we get to category D.
Category D are drugs that have significant risk. They should only be used during pregnancy. Oh, this is actually a really funny statement. They should be used during pregnancy only when the alternatives are worse. So
everyone is just like, if worse.
Yeah.
If worse.
Wait, so there is a situation where you might have to use a category D drug? Well, that doesn't make people feel very good.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's category X, which just should not be used during pregnancy at all.
Yeah, we should quickly mention that category D isn't very relevant in the realm of skincare, so we kind of glossed that over. But there are a few well-known ingredients that is category X in skincare. And the most famous one is Accutane. And actually, Accutane is part of the main reasons why other vitamin A S categories like retinol and all the retinoid family gets flagged, because this one is a proven no-no.
Yep, and that's exactly why if you are on Accutane, you have to be on birth control. And then another one that I think we should flag is Tazarotene or Tazarac. That's another one that's also category X. And that's really it. Those are all the real like topical ingredients that have any sort of info behind it in terms of pregnancy and skincare. Which means for all these brands touting pregnancy safe, how?
Yeah. That's why I think sometimes we get people that ask about our products, whether or not it's pregnancy safe. All you can say is the truth, which is we other than salicylic acid, we don't use any and retinol. We don't use any ingredients that's kind of been flagged as pregnancy questionable. But at the same time, you should still be absolutely checking with your health provider and see like how conservative you want to take with your skincare ingredients. And these are the main active ingredients. When you're talking about the full library of skincare ingredients, the reality is there's no data. There just isn't. So, yeah.
So I think for Gore and I, when we went through this topic, we really, I think, at least for me, I do really feel for first-time pregnancies navigating this world. It feels lonely and confusing and easily can feel like in somehow, some way, you are doing something that's affecting your kid. And so I think we've always felt like it's always your choice. It should never be don't let anybody else tell you, except for your doctor, of course, that, you know, what is the best stance to take in terms of skincare. Like I said, it can be very liberal, as in like, I've been, you know, what's funny? We didn't even talk about retinol.
Oh, yeah.
So like for something like retinol, right? This is where the whole vitamin A class gets deemed as bad for pregnancy, but you can see that even within the retinoid molecules, there's tiers, and retinol hasn't even been tested.
Yeah.
And so the general stance is like, should you be using it? It's a derivative that's removed, and, you know, on some sense, it's like, how bad is it going to be? But then also it's like, why even try? So that's kind of like the state of it is, and there's no really good definite answer.
I will say, I think throughout all of this, if you're concerned, you want to take a more conservative approach, again, if you are acne prone, definitely look at those ingredients first, because they tend to be the ones that gets flagged as recovered.
Totally.
And then the second thing is just go with a very minimalistic routine.
Yeah.
One of the big areas that people are looking into is just the cumulative effects of all these ingredients that may or may not have an effect on your body.
Yeah.
So during this time, it might be a good approach might be just less is more. And instead of having 20 steps, just minimize it to your cleanse, sun protection, and moisturize. And that's it.
On that note, we should mention that we will come out with a blog that summarizes all of our thoughts. And we will also include a couple references, because while in the US, it doesn't really feel like it's on their radar, but in the EU, they are definitely they have a much bigger push to look at this for pregnant women. So we have a few references that we would love to share that's looking at even things like sunscreen filters. So look for that to come. And then Gloria also reminded me, we need to talk about bakuchiol, because that is probably the #1 touted pregnancy safe alternative for no reason.
Yeah. Not tested. It's not in category anything, because there are no tests whatsoever.
I don't know how they came up with that.
Yeah, it's just like it's innocent because they claimed it's innocence because there's no data, but it's still positioned to act like a retinoid.
Yeah.
Yeah, no bueno here.
So if you are trying to navigate pregnancy and skincare, first of all, don't buy into grand sweeping claims that a brand is pregnancy safe. It's never how that is. I can only tell you from personal anecdote, I've only done things, it's a little whimsy for me. Obviously, I've been using all the sunscreens, so I'm all for sun protection. I think my general guideline is things that you might find naturally in your body, I feel like, are generally fine. So for me, like the vitamin C's, fine. You know, probably in navigating acne, I don't use BPO, I don't use salicylic acid, but I have been trialing some of the phage technology that we talked about in the acne episodes, because phages are pretty common to our skin. So I was like, yeah, that's probably a good time. You might also be thinking about some of the hypochlorous acid sprays. Yeah, I'm not doing that because it's very new and I don't really know. So that's like my personal anecdote to all of this is, and also for me, I just see like acne is not the priority here. And I've gotten over it when I was a teenager. I'm sure I'll get over it again. Is my general stance. So if that's helpful to anybody in figuring all this out.
Hang in there. We know it's probably, in a way, I feel like it's maybe not what people want to hear. Yeah. I wish we could come on and say, hey, here are these pregnancy safe skincare you can use and call it a day, but that's just not where the state of things are.
Yeah.
So yeah, just hopefully this paints a better picture for everyone, and you feel like you can make the best decision possible for yourself during this time.
So Gloria, being on the not pregnant side of things, how do you feel about all of this?
You know, I feel like on top of skincare, we get a lot of like, when you have people in your life that starts getting pregnant and you learn more about this time, you realize like the jury's out for like everything.
Yeah.
Things from drinking coffee.
Yeah.
Absolutely no alcohol. Well, 1 little cup is okay. But it really depends on when you drink it. I have so many friends that didn't know they were pregnant.
Yeah.
And then they'll go out and party. And then when they
That'd be me.
Yep. I have another friend that's like, holy shit, I blacked out. and then I found out 3 weeks later that I'd been pregnant for a month, but I had no idea. And they're like freaking out.
Yeah.
And then the doctor's like, yeah, that happens. You're probably going to be okay. But it's just like, honestly, I kind of take the realm of, you know what? I am a firm believer in happy moms make better babies. Just try not to stress so much. I know it's annoying here for everyone saying, well, don't stress, you shouldn't stress. But it is a stressful time in your life. So at the end of the day, just try to like keep zen and that's it. That's all I can say. It's really tough.
I think that's such a good point, is hopefully, I know we've basically, the theme of this episode is that there's too many unknowns. Yeah. There's so much that's not tested. I think if you walk away feeling stressed, don't. Topicals, they're probably the least of the worries. For me, I don't worry if let's say, if I accidentally wash my face with salicylic acid or put a topical, I'm not going to be freaking out, you know? So hopefully you guys feel the same way and know that the topical delivery mechanism is it's a lot more, what am I going to say? The topical delivery method is very different than a lot of the data that comes from oral. So just hopefully that will give you some peace of mind that this is not something to be super, super stressed about. Yeah.
Hang in there. And we're going to wrap this up.
Yeah. So let's wrap this up. Hopefully this was helpful. And then let's wrap this up with one Q&A question. Okay. This comes from our Instagram. One of our followers. I really loved what she wrote, but this is what she says. Today, I listened to a podcast about skincare and scientific proof of efficacy, and it made me so sad, as the conclusion was that basically nothing works except for tretinoin, because nothing can penetrate the skin due to the molecule being too big or not fat soluble. Are we all just wasting our time here by doing this surface work and not having long-term impact?
Ooh, this is such a good question. I really like this. There's actually a lot to unpack here. Yes. So first things first, ingredients that are not fat soluble / the surface level thing, that is a thing, right? So a lot of what chemist does is, you have to make sure that your active ingredients are solubilized and stable. There's a lot of bioavailability theories and studies and a lot of work that goes into how do you maximize an active ingredient. You can pack it in an emulsion system. There are liposomes, there are encapsulations, or it doesn't matter based on clinical tests. So for example, vitamin C is a classic. Ascorbic acid is water soluble. And time again, it's been demonstrated in clinical tests to have efficacy. So then that gets to the second layer of the question, which is, are we just doing surface work? Well, we can only say we're doing surface work because of, regulations.
Hello, FDA.
Yeah. So in closing ears a little bit, the way a skincare ingredient usually gets validated, there's a lot of tests that goes behind it. You might have in vitro test where the ingredients tested for antioxidant capacity, for example, and then maybe it's tested directly on, say, your skincare cells. And those tests, and this is why Victoria and I always harp on, these tests are step one, right? If they work on a petri dish on your skincare cells, that's promising, but that doesn't mean that when you apply it on your skin, it's getting to those cells, because the cells that's tested can be deeper in the skin, right? then at the end of the day, we always have to refer back to clinical evidence. And there's a lot there that we can do. And for us, a lot of these ingredients that, this podcast may have referred to as it doesn't work, there are a lot of clinical evidence that says otherwise.
Yeah. The truth always lies somewhere in the middle. Mm-hmm. This is quite a grand, sweeping statement. Mm-hmm. Gloria's absolutely right. Anything that, let's say any topical that manipulates anything below the stratum corneum is considered a drug. There's certain lingo that if you use that basically changes skin morphology, it would be considered flagging as a drug.
And this is actually more sweeping than you might think. So something very common is like boost collagen production. You're technically not supposed to say that.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I also should say there are some ingredients that get touted as anti-aging that are truly too big and will not penetrate. For example, collagen is the best example of that. So hopefully that makes you feel better. Your skincare can work. Brands just can't tell you sometimes how they're working for you. And there's enough clinicals out there to show you that there is a long-term benefit. It just takes a lot of time. And Gloria and I can tell you there is a piece of our formulation work where we just basically try to optimize the penetration of some of these ingredients for better efficacy. So that's the whole picture.
Yeah. And I do want to highlight one last piece of this is there also isn't anything wrong with doing quote unquote surface work. Yeah. For example, hydration, you're maintaining your stratum corneum, actually a very important part of skincare. Another thing is your AHAs, your exfoliation. Without using really high levels, you're just exfoliating the top layers of your stratum corneum, but that actually impacts your general skin health as a whole. So I would argue that surface work is actually also part of it as well.
As age prevention.
Yes.
Totally agree. Awesome. All right. So that's the end of this episode. We hope it's helpful, at least painting a picture in this realm and why Gloria and I have such a hard time with this category, answering questions on pregnancy.
Why we refuse to do this until one of us is actually pregnant.
Because what do we know? Yeah. So anyways, we hope you enjoy it. Gloria, where can they find us?
You can find us on our website at chemistconfessions.com. You can write to us at info@chemistconfessions.com. DM us on Instagram at chemist.confessions. Comment on this video. Don't DM us on TikTok. We really don't look at that very often. And we'll see you next week with our sunscreen reviews. Woo-hoo!